Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Whole Lot of Jesus podcast. I'm your host, Carley Rains. This is our 17th episode. We hope that you've been enjoying them. Today, we're going to interview two missionaries. One I went to college with, Carley. She was on the last episode, and her husband, Caleb, Carley and Caleb Holshin. They are part of Teen Missions, which travels overseas, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that today. And y'all actually met on a teen missions mission trip a few years ago during the summer, during college, which is a cool story. And y'all are now married. You're almost going to hit your 1 year in November. And y'all live in Florida and you're pregnant. So, how are y'all doing?
Doing good.
We're doing well. We're doing well. God has blessed us.
That is good. That is good. So I always ask this question, and I'm going to kind of word it based on y'all's ministry that y'all work under. But what is the coolest way you've seen God move in teen missions?
So for me personally, it's just cool seeing all of the teenagers, the youth who come back year after year. So with teen missions, we take preteens and teens on short-term mission trips. And so it's just cool seeing the impact and seeing the kids at the beginning of the summer versus the end and how much God has just impacted their life on the mission field.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's cool.
I would say for me, the coolest way that I have seen God move in teen missions is the people that it brings together. With us aside, met on a mission trip with teen missions. There are so many people that I've met just in and around the community. There were so many I met in Kentucky who knew teen missions. There were people that I knew growing up who knew teen missions. I didn't know that at the time, but it's all of these different people that are now connected. And we've had former team members that will reach out to us and say, "Hey, I met so and so missionary in so and so country when I was on so and so mission trip, and I ran into them again." Or we both were on the same teen missions team. And it's cool to see all those connections and how God brings us all together.
Yeah, that's really good. That reminds me of a book that my grandma gave me in college. It's called The Power of Who. And it's a great book. I recommend everyone read it because it's this Christian businessman. And there's a lot of books about networking, but he takes it to a Christian standpoint and he talks about how, like, pretty much God's going to put in your life the people that you need in order to accomplish his will, and how, like, we're
Yeah.
all connected and stuff. And he uses the disciples as an example. And it's just a really awesome book. And so that reminds me of that because, yeah, it's just super cool how God interconnects people and the connections that you make and the relationships. So that's really
What was the
cool.
book called again?
It's called The Power of Who. I can go get it real quick. And let me just show you. This is what it looks like.
Araku. Awesome. By Bob Bodine.
Yes.
How do
And
you say that? Bodine?
I don't know. Bo
I don't
Den
speak French.
Bowden something. Yeah. So he like literally says networking as we know it is crap. It doesn't work because he basically is saying like God's gonna send you the right people. So check it out for you listeners. Um, okay, so I know where Carley was before college and all of that, but Caleb, tell us a little bit about where you're from. Carley, you can repeat it in case they didn't see the last episode. Um, and your current life. Did you go to school, Caleb? And then did you always know you wanted to be a missionary and like work with teen missions, things like that?
All right. Well, as Carly said, I'm Caleb Polshin, and I was born and raised in Alaska, actually, for the first 13 years of my life. Pretty far from Florida, where I live now.
Yeah.
But growing up in Alaska, we lived in literally a log cabin in the woods. Not a lot of people around, very small community. But my aunt, my mom's sister, had gone on a teen missions team when she was a teenager, way back when. So then my mom asked my older brother, I'm the third oldest of 9 kids.
Oh my
So
God.
9 kids, small cabin in Alaska. And it was a pretty big cabin, but it was it was a good time. It was a good way to grow up. But my mom asked my older brother if he wanted to go on a team when I was probably 12 or 13. And he went, and that's what first planted in my mind was when my brother went at 16. But then when I was 13 years old, we moved to Spokane, Washington, is where my dad grew up and where my mom went to college at Whitworth University. So I moved there and I had 8th grade, and now the population of my school in Washington in this big city was bigger than the population of the town that I grew up in. So it was pretty intimidating for me. But when I was 16, it was December when I was 16, I was on winter break from school. Teen Mission sends out what we call just the brochure every year in the late fall, early winter. We send it out to all of our former team members, contacts, people who have requested it, and it has a little synopsis of what all of the teams are, where they're going, and what they're going to do. And my mom brought that to me and said, "Hey, do you want to go on one of these teams?" And I said yes immediately because I knew if I thought about it, then I would probably say no because I had all these friends that I wanted to hang out with, stuff that I wanted to do over the summer. So I said yes, and I went on the 2018 Taiwan team and fell in love with Teen Missions. Now, at this point, I had no idea that I wanted to be a missionary. I didn't really want to be a missionary. I thought, well, this is a good thing I can do with my summer. I do this every summer, and then I'm good. I've got my miles in. I've traveled the world. I've seen sights. I've done good work. I can move on with my life. So I went the next year in 2019 to Canada, and I still had no desire to be a missionary. But it was after that team, it was in 2020, I was a senior in high school, and then COVID hit and everything shut down. And I had Teen Missions didn't run that summer, so I had nothing to do. I was just hanging out at home. But Teen Missions runs a Bible school called Sojourner School of Ministry. And I had two of my buds that I had met on the Canada team were planning on going to this Bible school. So they both messaged me. One of them messaged me one day and said, "Hey, I'm going to this Bible school. Do you want to come with me?" And I said, "Oh, I'll think about it," which was a dead lie. I had no intention of thinking about it. I had no intention on going to the school. But then my other bud messaged me and said, "Hey, I'm going to this school. Do you want to come?" And I asked them after, and they said that they didn't plan it. God told both of them when they were asking who to ask, He told them me. And we had just talked in my youth group about God doing things in twos, how God sent Gideon 2 signs, and God sends things in twos, and that's how He gives confirmation. So then when my second bud texted me, I was like, okay, maybe I should take this seriously. And I don't know if I was out with friends or whatever. I got home and I walk up to my mom and I say, "Hey, mom, I'm thinking about going to this Bible school." And she goes, "Oh, funny story. I just got off the phone with the president of Teen Missions International who was calling to see if you wanted to come to the Bible school." So I had my application sent out in the mail the next day. Then it was the fall of 2020 in September that came to the Bible school. And it was when I came to the Bible school that it's a requirement that you go on the mission trips every summer. So I was on the Honduras team as a leader in summer of 2021, where Carley was also on the Honduras team as a leader. And that was how we met, coming full circle back to Teen Missions, because Carley had gone when she was a teenager, if you want to talk about that.
Yeah. So for me, my history with like teen missions and whatnot, like I grew up in Katy, Texas, so right outside Houston. And whenever I was in 3rd grade, I was in an Awanas program, which is just a Bible memorizing and learning kind of Wednesday program. And we had this missionary come talk to us, and pretty much I was like I went home and I was like, Mom, I'm going to be a missionary. So third grade me was like, I'm going to be a missionary. And my mom's like, okay. Um, Flash forward, I was 11. I had my god sister, Rachel, went on a mission trip with Teen Missions. And she came back from the summer. She went to Haiti. She comes back and she's like telling us all about it. And then I told my mom, I'm going to go on a teen next year. And so at 12 years old, I went to Canada with Teen Missions. And then I went the following year, when I was 13, I went to Israel. And
Wow.
then in 2014, I went to Italy, all with Teen Missions. And then and I loved it. I was loving my best life, serving God. And then I got to high school and I got involved in running cross country, and I couldn't take off the summers because I had to train for the season. So
Yeah.
kind of being a missionary kind of like was one of those childhood jokes of, oh, that's what I'm going to be when I grow up. Um, and then I was going to set my sights on being a nurse. Because in my mind, I was like, that's how I can help people. And then when I get experience with nursing, maybe I can go do something with traveling, like a travel nurse or something like going overseas. Then I went to Southern Arkansas University, met Carley on the cross country team, was in the nursing program. And then like everything was going according to my plan. And then COVID hit, and I was in nursing school. And so I was already struggling in nursing school because it's hard. And um, a lot of things were going on. So I struggled. And then COVID hit and everything went online. And the hardest class, which people struggle with normally when it's in person, I struggled really hard when it went online. And the tests were all online. And so, like, since they weren't being proctored, my fellow students were cheating on the hardest test, and I wasn't willing to compromise and
Yeah.
cheat. So I ended up not passing, which then messed me up on graduating. So flash forward, it's summer. I was working as a personal caretaker for this cancer patient, and I just had a lot of extra time. And I don't even know where the thought came from, but I was like, I wonder where Teen Missions is up to, like how COVID's affecting them, which I hadn't thought about Teen Missions in years. And so I looked them up, and then kind of on a whim, I just signed up to lead um, summer 2021 because in my mind, I was like, that's going to be the last summer I'm going to be able to go because I'm going to graduate December 2021. And then like I'm going to be working, so I can't take a whole summer off to go on a mission trip. So this is going to be the last time. Joke's on me because God had other plans, and pulled me back into missionary work. Met Caleb and a bunch of other things lined up where I wasn't able to really graduate, and then with my nursing degree. And I worked at the hospital for a little bit and it was miserable. And it was just like, it took me a while of God being like, hey, you're not going to be a nurse. Hey, you're not going to be a nurse. um, to fully embrace coming and being a full-time missionary. But and
Yeah.
then here we are.
Now here we are.
So I didn't put this in the questions, but how was y'all's meeting? Like, was it love at first sight? Did it take kind of the whole summer? I mean, kind of share with us, like, y'all met on this mission trip, but like, what was going on behind the scenes, you know? Guys, so y'all have probably seen the Leaning In planner and devotional being advertised on here. We are about to open pre-orders, and if you pre-order it before the launch date, which is November 1st, you get some goodies. You're going to get a signed copy from myself. You're going to get a personal note, and I am really going to emphasize that this personal note goes beyond just me writing a note to you. I'm really going to pray about what you need to hear and just give you some encouragement through that note. And then you also will receive a free bookmark with a quote from the book and a sticker, which it's really small in this image, but I'm so excited to show you when I have them in. They are ordered. I'm just waiting for them to get here, and I will be posting about the bookmarks and the sticker when I receive them. You're also going to get all of this in a cute, customized box that I am excited about. And so this is, again, the pre-order goodies. So when I open pre-orders, be sure to order this in advance if you would like this goodie stuff. You can always get the sticker and the bookmark after pre-orders, but you will have to pay for them, whereas this, you're getting them for free. So be looking out. Make sure to follow me on social media so you have all the updates on that. And if you haven't heard and you're new, our Leaning In Planner and Devotional is really about helping you grow in your faith with the Lord, helping you overcome strongholds, helping you overcome just the lies of the enemy, the wages of sin, and clinging to God for help. And so every month we have a devotional. I also include scripture declarations in the back with a ton of topics to help you if you're struggling with anxiety, or maybe suicide, or maybe a lack of purpose, or sexual sin, or addictions. There are all those scripture declarations to help you declare God's word over yourself. And so this is going to be available November 1st, so be sure to be looking out for that.
Well, it started with Carley, so Carley can answer that first.
So it was not love at first sight. So how Teen Missions is we have back then it was 2 weeks, training period. We call it the Lord's Boot Camp. And so that's when all of the team members train and prepare to go overseas. Well, I was there a week early for leader seminar, which is just for first time leaders, or if you haven't led in a while, to kind of make sure that you have the materials to be able to lead. And so I was there early, and Caleb and I met in kind of passing because he was doing stuff to set up for boot camp and everyone coming, and I was busy in classes. Then we got into boot camp, and that beginning of a crush, I started realizing I started liking him, and I remember praying to God. I was like, God, I do not have time for this. This was supposed to be a summer where I can lead, I can pour into these teenagers. I don't have time. There's not time in my schedule for me to deal with feelings. Please take them away. And then they didn't go away. And so then the prayer changed to, okay, God, if I'm going to have these feelings, he better like me back and something better happen because I do not want to deal with this. And so God was like, bet. And then started working in our lives, and the feelings didn't go away, obviously. And kind of here we are.
So what's your side of the story, Caleb?
My side of the story is that I wasn't looking for a relationship. And to me, I was leading this team, and now I had met Carley, and I was leading the team with Carley. And then we have this boys and girls devotionals that we call GGs. It's God's Gentlemen and then Grubby to Grace. And Carley was teaching the GGs class for the girls, and they had like a little workbook that they were going through. And Carley left hers on the table, and I remember glancing over at it. And then it was talking about relationships, and there was the question, who is somebody in your life that you'd like to get to know more? And she had written Caleb. I was like, that's kind of weird.
And you
I was thinking about that.
You saw it?
And I saw it. I don't know if I told you that.
I don't think
yeah, I saw it. And that's what put it on my radar, but I didn't even like her yet. And then as the summer developed on, we talked about it. And then I remember praying in my 2019 Canada team, when I well, starting back with my 2018 Taiwan team, I had a girlfriend when I left for the summer, but it was not a healthy relationship. And God taught me that over the summer, so I knew when I got back I had to break up with her. She was not good for me. So I did, and that was one of the hardest things that I'd done in my life because I really liked her. But then before going on my Canada team, I prayed and I asked, there are several girls that I was interested in back at home, but I didn't want to have to make the choice. So I prayed and asked God, whoever he would want me to marry, she has to make the first move.
Wow.
And that was 2019. And then 2 years go by and nobody had made a move. But then we were sitting on the bus in Honduras and Carly grabbed my hand, which wasn't allowed, by the way.
Why'd
That's
you like,
very much
okay,
against the rules.
were y'all like talking? I mean, like, what was you grabbed his hand, like holding his
We
hand?
weren't even sitting in the same seat. She was in the seat in front of me.
Why'd you grab his
And
hand?
she like reached, I like had my hands up against the seat for whatever reason. And then we were like poking around and then she grabbed my hand.
And that
But
was
then I
her first
remembered my
move.
prayer. I remembered my prayer in Canada and I was like, dang, she just made the first move. So I remember praying and saying, God, if this is it, then you're gonna have to make it through. Because I still didn't like her at this point.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, God,
You're
I'm
so
gonna step
blunt.
out in faith on this one. You fulfilled the sign, and then here we are.
Here we are.
That's so funny. So did you start you had to have started liking her eventually?
It took like a month into our relationship before I
Like
started like
dating,
actually
dating
liking her.
already?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A
Yeah,
month after the summer was when I started to actually like her.
after the summer. That's so funny. Well, thank y'all for sharing. That's such a great story. Carly, our lives literally parallel so much. I mean, you graduated,
I
Caleb,
know
in
it's
2020, and Briston graduated in 2020. And anyways, it's just I don't know if
Dang, I
Carly's
didn't know
told
that.
you all the parallel stuff uh that we have. Um, but that's so cool for y'all sharing. That's such a funny story. Man, Carly, you're bold. Um,
I remember just like feeling like I had to do it. I was like, well, okay.
yeah. I don't know if it's well, y'all's situation was different. Briston did like me first, but I like remember he would not tell me he liked me. Like I had to be the one to be like, I have feelings for you. Do you have feelings for me? Because, like, and then he opened up, but he was like, not gonna. But I think it's because he didn't want to ruin our friendship because we did have like a really good friendship and he didn't want to blow that. But, anyways, yeah, y'all's story that is so funny. That's such a
That's what
good
most
story.
guys think.
Yeah. um, okay, so y'all kind of explain teen missions. Why do y'all go overseas? What's the mission of teen missions? And what do y'all do overseas? And then yeah, y'all answered why y'all felt called to be missionaries. So what's teen missions? What's the goal? What do y'all do?
So Teen Missions is a youth missions organization. It's all in the name, teens missions. That's what we do. We send short-term mission trips over the summer to a variety of different places. This past year, we sent 13 teams to 13 different countries on 5 different continents.
Technically, it was 12 teens and then one preteen team.
12 teen teams, one preteen team.
Okay.
But our mission statement is to serve the church as a strategic research for motivating, mobilizing, and equipping youth to fulfill the Great Commission. And that's what we do is we take them in and we have our 10-day training period. It used to be 14 back when we met.
Yeah.
But it's 10 days now. They come to Florida. We train them for 10 days on evangelistic tools, work tools, if they have a work project overseas, how to share their testimony, how to share the gospel, how to write their testimony. We teach them all these things. They sleep in tents, they bathe out of buckets, they
Oh my
do their
gosh.
laundry in a bucket. They don't eat at tables because it's all training for when you're overseas. And when you're overseas, most of the time you don't have a table to eat at. Most of the time you won't have a laundry machine. Most of the time you won't have a shower. So we have to teach them how to do these things before they get overseas.
Yeah.
But then once they go, the projects can vary quite drastically. We have bricklaying teams that will go and build buildings. Back in the 90s, it used to be 8 weeks of field time, 8 to 10 weeks. So they'd have the 2 weeks of training and then they'd go out and they'd be overseas for 8 to 10 weeks. And one of the staff members at Team Mission says that on his first team, he went to Guatemala and they showed up and it was just this vast expanse of jungle, tr- full of trees, vines, brush, everything is what they showed up to. But then on their last day in Guatemala, they held a church service in the building that they had built on that swath of jungle property.
That's
They
cool.
cleared all of it and then they built a church building, and that building is still standing today, 20 years later.
Now, like, since we're only over there for 3 or 4 weeks now,
Yeah, the summers are
but
much shorter.
but you still have work projects. Like there is a team that went to Guatemala and they were able to um they laid big stones to make a driveway for this organization because they were up on a hill and they needed something that they could drive up to get there, especially when it rained and whatnot. And so they completed it they were there for 3 weeks.
But sometimes it's work projects, sometimes it's more evangelistic projects. And that was our Honduras team was supposed to be an evangelistic team, but we ended up doing a lot of work because of COVID restrictions.
Yeah.
But the evangelistic teams, we have Teen Missions has a ministry that we run overseas that we call circuit riders, Sunday school circuits.
Circuit
And we
ride.
have people that
No way. In California?
No.
no,
Okay.
different circuit riders.
Yeah, that is. Okay. Sorry, I was about to be like, this book's coming to pass. Anyways, okay. Keep going.
Our circuit rider ministry, we run Bible schools all around the world at almost all of our bases. And the students and interns from those schools will go out on motorcycles, boats, bicycles. They used to do horses, and they go to a different village every day or every week, depending on how far the circuit is. And they put on what they call Sunday school. It most of the time is not on Sunday, but a lot of them are Muslim areas or they'll have tribal religion. And if they say Bible school, then the parents won't let their kids come. But they say Sunday school because Christians know that to be a Bible class. But then parents hear school and they love it, so they send their kids. And we teach the kids English and we teach them the Bible. We teach them English through the Bible and other different things. They play games, have a good time. And our evangelistic teams will go on those with the writers and they'll put on presentations for the kids and they'll teach them about Jesus. And I think this past year, I don't have the exact numbers, but we over all the teams we reached thousands of people for Christ. And we saw, I believe, hundreds of people give their life to Christ over the
Wow.
course of just this summer. And it's really amazing to hear those numbers. We didn't go this year because Carley is pregnant. We were going to go back to Honduras, but there's a breakout of dengue fever, and dengue fever doesn't mix well with unborn children.
Hey,
So we stayed
let that
back,
go.
but it was awesome to hear the stories of people. They come back and all that God did, the people that they led to Christ, people that we send medical teams. We had 2 of them this year who give medical aid to people in the deep bush in Africa and all the testimonies that they were able to bring of healing that they saw. And it's just phenomenal to see how God works through our teams and what we do here at Teen Missions.
Yeah.
We touched on this, but we have bases around the world. So we operate in about 19 different countries and across 4 continents. So like
5 now.
5 now. Oh, okay. 5 now. But it's like we have bases in Honduras, we have an Australia base, we have Malawi, Zambia, South Africa. Like we have a whole bunch across the world. And they run similar programs, what we're describing. They run boot camps. So they will do their version of 10 days of boot camp. And usually these teams will stay in country, but they go out and do field evangelize, and then they have a period of debrief before they go home. And so we're touching lives around the world through teen missions.
Yeah.
And in most cases, the ministry overseas is actually bigger than the United States. We
Wow.
have 4 bases in Malawi that all ran boot camps, and they had over 1,000 team members. Just
Wow.
people that went on the trips, all within Malawi, and they sent over 1,000 people to go and share Jesus with the people of their country.
That is
And for
awesome.
comparison, the United States this year we sent like 220
Oh my
team
gosh.
members.
Yeah.
So it's awesome also to hear the testimonies that you hear from those countries of the people that they reach outside of what we do in Florida.
Okay, so we are also providing the free goodies for our Be Generous devotional, which also comes out November 1st. And this is the same thing. It's a planner and devotional, but it emphasizes how to biblically handle your finances, how to steward generosity through your service, through your time, through your skill sets, how to serve different areas of your life generously. And so it's the same thing. Every month we have devotionals, and these are our pre-order goodies where you're going to get a sticker with a quote, a bookmark, and I'm going to do a bundle. So if you order both the Leaning In and Be Generous, you'll get them together. And this, again, needs to be ordered before November 1st, the launch date, if you want these goodies. And I will be posting about them soon. But really, if you just want to learn how to manage your finances, if you're just stressed out when it comes to your finances, you don't know what to do, you don't know where to turn, but you want to make a change in 2025, I highly recommend getting this planner and devotional. I use a lot of resources that financial advisors and really money people use. I use Dave Ramsey as a huge inspiration. And so we're going to talk about that. Yeah, that's so cool. I want to touch on this before we move on. Y'all's income, y'all are full-time missionaries. So y'all's
Yes.
income is fully based on supporters giving to y'all. They give through the ministry, and then the ministry pays y'all, is how that works.
Yeah.
But it's pretty much support based. You have to fundraise and find not donors. I don't know what you would call them.
Partners.
Partners, is that what you call them? Partners.
We call them partners because the ministry that we're doing, when people, technically, legally speaking, it's a donation. But there are financial partners because without their donations, the ministry that we do wouldn't be possible.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
through the donations and the partnership,
No,
they do partner with us in the ministry, and what we do and what we're able to do over the seas is only possible because of that.
Yeah. Okay, guys. So the last ad that I have for us on this episode is we are looking for coaches under our Stewards of Faith to help mentor and coach people who are really after growing in their relationship with the Lord. We have these 7 different categories, as y'all know, and so we're looking for a coach for each category. And really, our heart's desire is to help mentor and disciple the younger generation, and to help them learn how to set goals that partner with God as they mature in their faith. And so if you are passionate about one of these 7 areas and you would like to grow in your leadership, in your discipleship skills, to disciple others, we are all called to make disciples. And so really, it doesn't mean that you have to have everything together. It doesn't mean that you have to know everything. We're going to provide leadership development to help pour into you as you pour into others. But this is an online community, and you will receive some commission as a part of doing this because we want to value your knowledge and your wisdom and your time, and we want to honor that. And so if you're interested in becoming a coach and helping disciple others, please reach out to us. Please comment. Please let me know. Hey guys, so as you can tell, we have a change of attire. and wardrobe. We had a little pregnancy, not scare, but Briston and I just had to make sure everything was okay with the baby. So we had to pause the podcast, and now we are finishing it a few days later. And I don't know if y'all have a drink that y'all are drinking, but it is fall. And so I have my little pumpkin drink. It says Hello Pumpkin to celebrate fall. And y'all's episode is coming out in October, which is perfect for fall. So that does fit. So we picked up on talking about how y'all are fully funded with partners. That's how you get your income is it's just like, how would you describe it? Monthly partners who you can give one time or you can subscribe. It's like a subscription. You subscribe monthly to an amount. And y'all are recently, when this podcast comes out, y'all are going to be traveling to kind of get more funding since you're having a baby and different things like that. And one thing that I do want to preference and talk about is the importance of giving to Christian things. It's like our job as Christians to take care of one another and to take care of the church. And I just really want to encourage and motivate all of us just to think about that, to think about like how we're using our finances. I understand there is the tithe, but I don't want us to limit ourselves to that of, giving 10% to the church. When you look at Acts and you look at the early church and how they literally they sold land, they made sure everyone was taken care of, no one was in need. And I feel like with our American culture, we're so greedy. Like we're so like, I want my things and things like that. And we forget that as ambassadors of Christ and as Christians, we are called to take care of one another. And your sowing is not in vain. So when you stand before the Lord, your life, I do think that the Lord is going to look at how you helped the church and how you helped other Christians, and how you helped other people in need. And the world is not going to get any better. And if we don't use our generosity to help other fellow Christians, how can the gospel be spread? I think sometimes we forget that, yes, everything's not about money, but it takes money to plant a church and it takes money to send missionaries and print Bibles. And so, with that, I just want to encourage generosity and just really asking yourself, and I just really want to challenge us to look at our finances and see okay, are there things in my life where I'm spending money that it's probably a waste, Don't, he says, don't store up treasures, something, I'm gonna butcher the verse, but don't store up treasures on earth where moth and stuff can get, and but store it up in heaven, and giving to missionaries and giving to causes that advance the kingdom. Do that for that purpose. And I know I'll let y'all talk in a minute. I'm sorry. I know finance is such a sensitive topic. Like we get kind of queasy. It's so funny. Our pastor was like, that T word when you talk about the tithe and giving and just finance in general is such a sensitive topic, even in the church, because it is personal. But I do think it's important to evaluate, okay, how am I spending my money, and is there ways I could be using it better and more effective to help those in need and to use it for eternal purpose, not just earthly purposes. So, do y'all want to add anything to that?
I think with supporting missionaries, I think there's this oh, what's the word I'm looking for? Misinformation that oh, well, my tithe I can only give to the church, but God also calls to support missionaries. And something that we've learned in like support raising is that it is biblical for support raising. We see it even like with Jesus and the disciples.
Yeah.
When they would go to a town, they would ask people like open up their homes and like give them food, give them shelter while they were doing their ministry. You see it in the Old Testament with the Levites. The Levites didn't own property, they didn't own land, cattle, and because they were God's priests. Um, and like they relied on people supporting them. And so that's also where a lot of missionaries are, is they are relying on people's generosity and support in order to do what God has called them to do.
And that's where the tithe comes from, is that the rest of the Israelites would give a tenth of what they had to the Levites because they didn't have fields and they didn't have flocks of cattle and everything. They had to rely on the 10% that the rest of the tribes would give, and God told them that their inheritance was in the work of the Lord. They didn't get physical land and flocks and fields and cities and all this stuff. Or they had 3 cities, but they didn't have flocks and fields because their inheritance was the work of the Lord.
Yeah.
And you see it with Elijah as well. Elijah the prophet and Elisha after him both relied on the generosity and faithfulness of other people as they went around doing their work.
Yeah, that's really good. Thank y'all for sharing. And just to advertise a tidbit, but we are coming out with the Be Generous Planner and Devotional. So if you need help with your finances, I had Megan Whitehead, who's a financial advisor. She like helped come up with the different topics and stuff. So it goes over budgeting, managing your debt. Because I think that's a big thing is like you want to help, but I think sometimes because of how many subscriptions we have or where we're spending our money, like how much debt we have, it's all getting drawn out. And so it's like, oh, I want to give, but I just think like we don't manage it like we should, if that makes sense. And that's a big problem across the US when you look at financial literacy. So, what are y'all's future, or what are the future plans in the ministry? Especially with having a baby, like how is that gonna think about like being missionaries with a child? I mean, how is that gonna, do y'all know yet?
Well, as of right now, we plan on staying with Teen Missions as long as God calls us to be here. So we don't have any plans of leaving Teen Missions. As for like how we're going to work with being a missionary and having a kid, there's plenty of families with Teen Missions. So like next summer, we plan on taking baby with us wherever we go. So baby Holston will go to whichever country we're going to. And like it's kind of a lot of it is up in the air if I'm going to still be in the office or not, or if I'm going to be more of a stay-at-home presence, but we will see what God has in store for us after baby is born.
Yeah. That's cool. You're gonna have your work cut out for you with traveling with a little baby. But it can be done. It can be done. So where can people find y'all on social media? And then if they wanted to give, do they just go to the specifically to y'all? How do they give specifically to y'all and get that information?
For specifically us, they could go to teenmissions.org/give/Holshen, which is HOLSCHEN. Is our give page with Teen Missions.
I'll put it in the description below.
Awesome.
Yeah, so y'all can just text me, Carly, what it is.
Yeah, I'll send it to you.
Okay, perfect.
And then you can find me on Instagram at Caleb Holshen. And I am actually a host on previously 2 podcasts, currently 1. Firmly Grounded is a Teen Missions podcast, and it's part of the ministry that we do to reach young people around. So you can find me there too.
Cool.
My primary personal account is K Holshan 4198. You can find me there on Instagram. And I have a writing account, which is K Holshan Writes. And so that's where I do a lot of my more writing. Because if you listen to the previous podcast, I think we mentioned that Carly and I are both writers.
Yeah.
But if you want to like connect more with us and follow our ministry, you can contact me through Instagram and I can add you to our prayer partners or our newsletter. So our newsletter comes out 3 times a year. And that just gives us like ministry updates about what we're doing in our personal life and kind of what Teen Missions is doing around the world. And then our prayer partners, I send periodic emails out with like life updates and prayer requests.
Yes, and we love getting those, by the way. And then if let's say there's a high schooler or a preteen who's like, oh, I'm interested in doing teen missions, how do they just go to the website to apply, or how does that work?
Yeah, so they would go to teenmissions.org, teenmissions.org, and our 2025 mission trip teams are up. So they can go and look at all the information for the mission trips, information about the organization, and everything is up on teenmissions.org.
Perfect. Well, thank y'all. Do y'all have any final like last things y'all want to say about anything, or?
I'd just like to encourage the listeners to follow God's calling, whether that's giving or going or whatever it is in ministry. God has work for everybody. And just because you're not a missionary and you don't go out into the world and do stuff, that doesn't mean that there isn't ministry that you can do at your work, at your home, at your school, wherever you are. So I just encourage everyone to look for that and ask God to give them the eyes to see it so they can, and the boldness to take hold of those opportunities when they get them.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, and just be in prayer. That's the biggest thing. Pray about your finances, pray about how God can lead you, and just be in prayer with everything you do, because that's the best way to communicate with God.
Yeah.
And also eat vegetables.
And
They're good for you.
Yes, they are. Yeah, that's okay. So to end on not the vegetable part, but the y'all talking about like doing what God's called you to do. I know at the end of college, like the Lord really started working on Briston and I's heart about giving. And it's really cool to see, like, oh, even though I don't have a heart necessarily to go to Africa, like I do have a heart to like give to those causes. And it's cool to see how God can plant different seeds inside of you to fulfill his gospel. So even though you're not like the one physically going, because at the end of college, I found out like I was super passionate about personal finance. So it makes sense like why they tied together with the giving and the personal finance. So what you're saying, Caleb, about like whatever God's called you to do, a lot of times he's gonna like plant these passions in you, and then somehow it's going to incorporate the gospel and incorporate spreading the Great Commission. And so don't like put yourself in a box, and don't think if I'm not like a pastor or an evangelist or a missionary, that doesn't mean I'm not doing God's work. He could like really use what you're passionate about in the season you're in to somehow fulfill the gospel where you're at. And so that's been a cool learning experience over the past few years. So
awesome.
Great. Okay. Well, this didn't take that long at all. It was so fun having y'all on the podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for accepting it. And I wish y'all luck traveling and support raising. And yeah, do y'all just want to pray us out and we'll be good to go?
Yeah.
I can pray.
Yeah, Caleb, do the honors.
Dear Lord, thank you for this day and this chance that we have to be here and talk to Carly and her listeners. I ask that you would bless our words as they go out, help them to touch people, and open people's ears to hear your word and what you have to say to everyone in their lives. Help them have the boldness to take the opportunities of ministry when they see them, and give them wisdom to know where and when to give for your purposes. To be with us wherever we go. Help us to honor and glorify you in everything we say and do. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Amen. And thanks for listening, guys, and I will see y'all on another episode.